You're listening to the College is Worth It podcast. Learn from leaders who are transforming higher education to ensure that a college degree will pay off for this generation and the next by exploring innovations in education with us in each episode. And now your host, V. Nguyen.
Hello, everyone. This is V, and you're listening to the College is Worth It podcast. Today, Drew Melendres, who has served in many enrollment positions for many years and is currently the Chief Client Service Officer at Ardeo Education Solutions, will be interviewing Dr. Bill Carroll, former president of Benedictine University, who currently serves as president of Hunter Global Education, working with American and Asian educational institutions. Drew and Dr. Carroll discuss the higher ed landscape from the perspective of his former presidency and creative ways to improve enrollment today. So let's get to it.
Well, Dr. Carroll, thank you for joining me here on our College is Worth It podcast. For those of you listening, I am Drew Melendres. I'm our Chief Client Service Officer at Ardeo Education. I wanted to invite a special guest. It's someone that I've known for years now and has given me lots of great advice and guidance over the years, whether I've listened to it or not, Dr. Bill Carroll, who I look forward to having just kind of some back and forth and hearing his take on why college is still worth it. Along with his journey throughout the year. So Dr. Carroll, thank you so much for joining me.
And Drew, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, let's start with at the start of this. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background in higher education.
Well, I started out as a student like most of us. In my early days of college, I was studying to be a priest in the Roman Catholic Church. I got within months of that goal and realized that I really enjoyed philosophy and theology and was not ready to move to the level of priesthood. So I stepped out of the seminary and luckily got a nice fellowship to Catholic University in philosophy, where I got my master's degree and I got my doctorate degree, and my specialty is Pseudo-Dionysius Areopagite.
I'm sorry, what does that mean?
Pseudo-Dionysius Areopagite was a 6th century Syrian monk, we believe, and pseudo means unknown, Dionysius, who pretended he was a disciple of St. Paul and wrote a whole lot of text based on Platonism and put them into the Christian scripture, Christian philosophy, and became a highway for Christian philosophy and theology until today, based on a fake, scholar who saw the importance of Platonism for Christianity, and he didn't put his own name in because he knew no one would read him.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
And the name Dionysius Areopagite, Dionysius was a person baptized by St. Paul on the Areopagite, a small mountain. Yeah. So this person thinking, well, if I fake his work, people are going to say, this is a disciple of Paul. They're going to read his readings. And it went through all of the Christian tradition up until around the 15th century when it was finally figured out he wasn't the real thing. Really? But his impact has been huge. Wow. So that was my academic specialty. And I started my career at Coppin State College, now university in Baltimore City, a historically Black institution. And I was hired to be a philosophy professor, instructor. And I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed teaching the students at Coppin. And I enjoyed teaching so much that I was always afraid of running out of students. So I started developing programs. I started a weekend college. We started a inmate extension program at a Baltimore maximum security prison in downtown Baltimore. Okay. It became one of the largest inmate programs in the country. We had inmates in prison for life and long sentences going to college. Okay. And that was funded by the government for a while. They stopped it. And in the last couple of years, it's picked up again, that students in prison who are educated are less likely to return to prison because of that education. So I began building all kinds of programs. When computers first came out, we had a thing called Commodore 64, which is probably before your time, Drew. Right. It was early on, and we had a lab full of Commodores, and I put out a bid to the state of Maryland that we would do the training on computers for state employees. So we won the bid, and the Baltimore Civic Center was the venue. So every weekend, a friend of mine would go in our computer labs at Coppin, remove all the computers and take them to the Civic Center to teach state employees how to use Commodore 64. And at one point, the dean or the president said, Bill, we're going to make you the dean of continuing education. I said, what's that? And he said, I don't know, but you're going to find out. And that kind of left me from teaching, going into administration. And my driving thing there was the fear of running out of students. And at Coppin, I stayed there 19 years. It was a great educational grounding for me. Everything I think I learned for later in my career was taught to me at Coppin. And I have a great affinity for the HBCUs because it's a great place to learn, to work, great students, and wonderful opportunities. At one point, I decided at Coppin it was time to move on and go back to the private colleges where I had my beginning. I wanted to have a chance at a private college that was known for diversity because I could not understand why HBCUs still need to exist when there's so many opportunities in other institutions. And that's a question I think we still need to ask. HBCUs are the primary feeders of people of color into our society in terms of higher education. Wonderful purpose. Why don't they do well at white institutions? So I went to Ohio Dominican. I was the dean of the academic dean there, the provost, spent 5 years there and decided that after 5 years it was time to move on to my own presidency, and ended up at Benedictine University in 1995. And it was Illinois Benedictine College then. They were in the middle of a racial war. And I think that's probably why I was hired. And I spent 20 years at Benedictine. We expanded all over the world. We were known as one of the best places for diversity in the country. We were 30% Muslim. We went from 1,400 students to approximately 11,000 students.
Wow.
I had sites in Mesa, Arizona. I had sites in Springfield, 7 sites in China, similar numbers in Vietnam. And those programs are still alive and well. And all of what was driving me was my fear of running out of students. From, being a teacher, loving, the art of teaching, to I got to find some students or I'm not going to be able to do this, to an administrator saying, I still need to find some students. And today, after 20 years at Benedictine, that's long enough for anybody to be president. I knew that many institutions want to go to Asia. And over 20 years at Benedictine, I had developed significant relationships in Asia. And Asia runs based on relationships. You can't go in there yet tomorrow and start a program the next day. There's a level of relationship building that has to happen. I have 20 years of that. So I started Hunter Global Education that specializes in taking American universities and colleges and developing joint income producing programs with Asian institutions. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm also a consultant, some IT companies in the country, and I'm also running St. Joseph's College in Rensselaer, Indiana, which in 2017 went out of business, and the board called me and asked me to bring it back. So we're bringing St. Joseph's Rensselaer back, and we'll talk more about that probably a little bit later. So that's kind of a quick overview of what I do.
Love it. Thank you. That's already compelling to hear just all that varied experience and such a unique perspective. So let's go back to the start. What made you choose to want to go into seminary and almost become a priest? What drove that?
Irish Catholic firstborn, I think, was a big driver. Okay. Although I never felt pressured. The desire to reach out and work with people and help people was big. And I think that when I was in the seminary, the Vietnam War was going on, and I reached a point that I realized I was being protected from the draft. And then my best friend was killed in Vietnam, and I said, I can't stay here anymore. Even though I want to study, I need to leave and make myself subject to the draft like any other person, any other male in this country. And what's funny about that, my best friend was killed in Vietnam, and some of my best relationships now are people in Vietnam who were on the other side of that battle. Yeah. Strange world.
Very strange.
I don't know whether there's an answer to why do you want to go to the seminary, or do you want to work with people? Okay.
Yeah.
You feel called to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then what made you take the hard turn to not become a priest? Was it what happened with your friend, or? No,
the calling hasn't changed, but I people say, well, you majored in philosophy. Why? Yeah. Philosophy chose me. Okay. Yeah. I really had no choice but to major in philosophy. I was not ready to stop my studying and go to a parish somewhere in Pennsylvania and be an assistant pastor or whatever.
Right.
I plan to do that someday. I've never gotten back there, by the way. But I went on to philosophy, and I had that opportunity for the doctor's degree. And, a lot of uncertainty. That's a hard decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved the life. It was a great life. Many of my classmates have become bishops. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I started realizing I'm called in a different direction, still to serve, but in different ways.
Very good. Well, philosophy, let's take a turn there. Today I think parents hear that term and they can say, oh no, my child may not have a job. As you thought about that as a major, did cost or return on your investment factor in your college choice or anything like that? Or was that not even a thing students thought about then?
Well, I was fortunate enough to get scholarships.
Okay.
I had it in it when I was leaving seminary. My father got me. My father was a civil engineer. All right. Big time construction type guy. And he said, will philosophy feed your family?
Mm-hmm.
And after 20 years as president, I said, Dad, philosophy fed my family quite well, feeds them quite well. And I think that anybody who majors in something like philosophy or history or whatever is going to hear that. All right. And it may not be that I become a philosophy teacher, but I use philosophy more as in management, as a president. It's more of a, this is for real philosophy. All right. Teaching students, Aristotle, Plato, Kant. Okay. That's fine. But when you're in the workplace and you have decisions to make, all right, that critical thinking you pick up in these liberal arts areas is crucial. And I think you'll still find most employers say liberal arts people are the best critical thinkers, but we need to have some other skills other than just liberal arts. So you're seeing an onslaught now of certificate programming and management to add on to these majors. So, I love philosophy. I don't ever has to teach it again. I enjoy the back and forth, the camaraderie, focusing on topics. But your child, if they go into liberal arts, will always hear you're not going to be able to get a job. That should never deter a person. Okay. Don't let people tell you what you can't do. As a matter of fact, my own mantra was, if you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to show you I can. And so, that's a great question, but I'm sure every student who ever went into a liberal arts area got that same thing. Why don't you go into something like medicine or nursing? Yeah. There's a role for liberal arts.
Absolutely. Well, I think I know the answer to this then, but if you had to do it over again, would you change anything in your higher education experience?
Absolutely not. I go right back into seminary and start it all over again.
Good.
Okay. Because in a sense, you're learning about yourself.
Yeah. In
this kind of study. And, I think one of the lessons I pulled out of there is be willing to make significant decisions about yourself. Mm-hmm. Right. When I used to teach moral philosophy, if a person can't decide whether to do A or B, they've decided. Okay. Mm-hmm. Not making a decision is to make a decision. If I couldn't decide, okay, to leave the seminary, then I was staying in the seminary and I probably would have been a fat and very unhappy clergyman. Okay. You've got to be willing to have the courage to make tough decisions. The hardest thing about leaving the seminary was telling my Irish Catholic parents. Mm-hmm. But then they embraced me. They said, fine. Okay.
Really?
We're with you. So it's just it was a wonderful experience. My class consisted of 13 guys who wanted to save the world. Yeah. What better environment is that? Now, none of us did, but what a great camaraderie that was.
Yeah, absolutely. And you keep in touch with many of them today?
None of them.
No. Okay.
No. Institutions cut you real fast when you leave.
Oh, okay.
There's one or two I know where they are and what's going on. A lot of them left. I think about eight of them made it. It's a pretty high attrition rate.
Yeah.
But it's just the experience. It's you talk about a well-oiled machinery is ministry, is studying to be a minister. Mm-hmm. Lockstep, and has a natural outcome. But sometimes students go in different directions. So I heard philosophy and went in that direction.
Very good. Is the path you took still achievable today for students? Could the student today still go that path of that you needed, or has higher education changed so much that they couldn't follow a similar path?
I think so. Okay. Seminary education is open to everybody. And I hope at some point we change that women can become Catholic priests. But that avenue is open. But you'll find a lot of students. When I was president, I used to ask incoming students' parents. We'd have a parent meeting. I'd say, how many of you know what you want to be when you grow up? Mm-hmm. Very few of them raise their hands. Right. And then I would say, well, why are you putting so much pressure on your kids? Back off.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they're going to change their career 5 or 6 different times.
Mm-hmm.
And with me, I still don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm open to new things, and you just need to be able to go with the flow. I mean, jobs are important. I understand that, but happiness is more important.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter necessarily of making all the money in the world. It's being of service.
Mm-hmm.
Being of service.
Very good. Let's go to your time as a faculty member teaching philosophy, and you talked about this idea of a fear of running out of students. That's not something I've heard from faculty member. I guess as a enrollment manager, I'm told, well, your job's to get us the students, and they should never run out. So tell me why, as a faculty member, that was a fear of yours.
The love of teaching.
Hmm.
Okay, look what's happening today in a lot of colleges across the country.
Mm-hmm.
Cutting programs.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first areas cut philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, English. Okay, they're keeping the business management type courses, but the fluff courses they call, philosophy and that are disappearing.
Right.
My whole career, I've heard nothing but the mantra that the liberal arts are going out of existence.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they still haven't, and they won't, but they're changing dramatically. So I'm in a school, okay, that didn't have a lot. I think we had 1,200, 1,500 students at COP, maybe 3,000, but it wasn't at the premier level of the big guys in the University of Maryland system. So we were always on the verge of being merged into someone else. Mm-hmm. And the only way we could stay whole, in my mind, was get more students. So that fear, at some point I had to step out of teaching and move into, development, program development. Yeah. And, there's an old maxim out there that your enrollment is a byproduct of your academic program. If you're not getting new academic programming, you're not getting new enrollment. And that's the symmetry that's really, really important.
Yeah. What was your favorite part about being a faculty member?
The light going off in people's eyes.
Mm.
Okay, to see a student finally understand an argument, or to see a student realize they finally get it, mm-hmm. and they start asking the questions. To see the students taking a second and third philosophy class. Okay, we built a philosophy major at Coppin because of the student interest. So I think it's the reaction of the student, and I'm still in touch with 2 or 3 students from Coppin, okay, who became superintendent of Baltimore City Schools, major lawyer and principals. I mean, it was just Coppin did more for me than I ever did for Coppin.
Oh, very neat. So tell us about this transition to somewhat of administration in terms of developing curriculum. How did that, what new skill set or appreciation did you have as you moved from just faculty member to curriculum and program development?
There's a tradition in this country that presidents should come out of the faculty. Mm. And I wholeheartedly agree with that, because there you learn the nuts and bolts of the academic side of the house, right? Mm-hmm. The faculty, and sometimes it frustrates the tar out of me because it tends to be a slow process, but the faculty are in charge of the curriculum. That's their baby. That's their expertise. Mm-hmm. And they know how to build and design courses. I went through that process. I built majors and things like that. The next level of that advancement is developing programs that then I turn to the faculty and ask for courses to support it. Mm-hmm. So for example, I developed a Benedictine Senior Center, okay, senior university, and it was open only to retired people. Mm. And I asked the faculty to give me now they had a program that I'm asking courses for to teach retired people, doctors, lawyers, whatever, teachers. Mm-hmm. Okay. Huge program. But by becoming a faculty member and going through that process, I was ready to go to the next process of program development as a dean. So say at Coppin, I formed the weekend college and work with faculty to take their 15-week course and make it a 5-week course. But we had the components. You had the leadership, the dean, who saw the vision, got the faculty involved to realize that vision. And again, an old maxim is, if you have a vision and no one buys into it, it's called a hallucination. All right. So I have lots of visions. I got to make sure people buy into them. Yeah. And one of the guiding things that when I went from a faculty member to a chair, to a dean, to a provost, and then the president, I started hearing another voice. Mm. When I was a faculty member, I heard my comrades, the faculty, mm-hmm. in all the disciplines, chitter-chattering about. When I became a dean, I started listening to another voice. It was very weak, all right? But it wasn't the faculty anymore. Mm-hmm. It was something else. as I went up the ladder and became a president, I realized it was the voice of the institution. All right. When I went to Benedictine, they were struggling. Okay. It was a place about to go out of business. And the voice I heard was very weak. And we had to develop programs, again, that program, faculty background, okay, that would support the mission of that institution and make that voice stronger. So I went to Benedictine, we had 1,400 students. When I left, we had 11,000. The voice was very strong. We were the fastest growing university in the country, not for traditional programs, even though they're important, but for developing new programs, okay, that would foster a bigger and larger enrollment. So, going from faculty to a president is simply, to me, a seamless fabric. All right.
Okay.
And if I come in as a president who does not have that experience, then it's going to be a hard road. You need to get some faculty mentors to help you with the process.
Very good. Okay. So let's maybe tell me more about this transition now that you're an administrator. Did you ever feel like you had to betray faculty along that process, or you had to did it give you a different perspective? That I oftentimes see this us versus them mentality of faculty versus administration. How did you bridge gaps like that?
There's a saying among the faculty: when a faculty person becomes an administrator, whether it's a chair or a dean, the faculty saying is, "Oh, you've gone to the other side." Okay. Great. There's a natural divide, right?
Yeah.
It's a healthy tension because you have the faculty keepers of the academic resource, but the administration keepers of the institution, which forces us into a dialogue that may not happen if that was not there. Of course, I made a lot of faculty angry, okay, over the years. And if I didn't, I wasn't doing my job. You can't make everybody happy. And so, I interacted with faculty in an open and honest way. I never lied to them. I always made them think I was a little bit crazy. Okay. Not that I really was, but I said, he's liable to go off in the wrong direction. Be careful. Okay. Which got them to work with me, okay, on a constant basis. I also would always find what I call the faculty flags. These are faculty who speak for the faculty, who the other faculty look up to for guidance. So I would empower the faculty flags around my vision, and they would bring the rest along. So, for example, when we decided to start a campus in Mesa, faculty were against it. Or we started adult education, faculty were against it. I got the flags, got them invested in those programs. The rest of the faculty came on. So there's a natural tension there. And as an administrator, you've got to make tough decisions. Again, not to make a decision is to make a decision. Right. And we had a lot of tough questions, a lot of tough decisions to make, but the president is charged with doing that.
So, especially at Benedictine, to start such growth in the 90s, this is before online education. You start a senior college, you start all these satellites. This fear of running out of students is there, but I meet lots of campuses where the president says, no, we're 2,000 students. We like being 2,000 students and we're okay with that. Why at Benedictine did you say, no, we got to do something different. We really need to grow into new markets?
Because we transformed Benedictine from being an academic institution to being a business. Okay. That income has to equal expenses. All right. And what you're seeing now is you're seeing discount rates over 50%. That's a death knell. Okay. Our discount rate was maybe 20%. When I left, student loans was $19,000. I would freeze tuition against the competition, knowing that I would attract many more students than I would if I didn't. So by running it, I had a board member, he just died a couple of days ago, Will Gillette. He said, we're going to run this like a business. And I had to learn from him how to do that. But income equals expenses. And faculty will argue we are not a business. We're a scholarly institution. Am I going to get a raise this year? What about cost of living? Those are business questions for your scholarly side of the house. Of course you are, because we're running like a business. So I look at enrollment as a tabletop. Okay, that's your enrollment. But your tabletop is only as strong as individual legs. So one leg is traditional students, another leg is adult students, another leg for us was Asia. Okay, another leg is online, another leg is a senior university. All these legs together made us the fastest growing university in the country. So, a person who wants to stay at $2,000, unless their endowment is humongous, and I've had a couple presidents say to me that we can actually stop tuition tomorrow and live off our endowment, pay for all the students' way. That's wonderful, but very few institutions are there. You take the 2,000 student institution, we like the small, I know that, okay, the small scholarly thing. But I got all these buildings out here that have deferred maintenance, millions and millions of dollars. All right. What are you going to do with that? That's eating into your $2,000 income. And to keep those 2,000 students, how much are you having to discount? And most of the time, when students give when colleges give a scholarship, it's not money out of the endowment, it's a reduction in the tuition, which is called the discount.
Very good. Let's talk about challenges. So I'm going to give you, since you've had such a varied career, and you can answer this for three different ways. At Benedictine as president, what was your greatest challenge, and how did you address it? And I think I have some insight to that. And now at Hunter Global Education, and what's going on in the world and the economy, and a little bit about some of your challenges there. And then at St. Joe's, that also seems like a particularly interesting place now that you have to bring back to life. So what challenges are you seeing, and how has your career kind of helped you be the right person for each one of those places?
I see my answers are all the same thing.
Oh, okay.
At Benedictine, I was Benedictine focused. Okay, laser focus on Benedictine. And the initial challenge was stop the racial strife. All right. We did that wonderful, became a model of diversity. All right. Stop the student decline. All right. We did that through new programs, constantly doing that. The fact that we actually turned it around and we're growing the place. I think we built like 17 buildings when I was there. Okay.
Wow.
The idea of the business income model. So by being singularly focused, I could take those skills and really zero in just on the Benedictine campuses, because we obviously expanded. At the end of my presidency, and I knew I was getting bored, and that's very dangerous. Okay. So I knew I had to leave, and decided that what I want to do is I'm going to continue always working with colleges. And I do that through Hunter. I do it on individual consultancies. I founded Hunter because I see the future enrollment pattern in higher education is huge international. International is going to be bigger than we've ever imagined. And the biggest source of students has been and will continue to be China. Vietnam is going to pass China someday, India. Most of our private, not-for-profit institutions have no idea how to get into those countries. I've built a template. Okay. I have one institution this year that just, has started 2 new programs. They almost have $500,000 just this year for that program. So I took the singular focus at Benedictine, and now I represent colleges who want to go to Asia and develop joint income opportunities. I mentioned the programs at Benedictine. The Benedictine income from Asia was 7 figures, and it's 20 years old and still, I think, way up there in terms of 7 figures. So these are long-term income producing that I have the highway relationships over there. You build on my experience, and you get a partner within months. Develop income producing opportunities. St. Joseph's was a little different venture. Benedictine is located across the street from Bennett Academy, and a board member at Bennett Academy saw what we were doing at Benedictine, and he was a St. Joseph's graduate and also a board member. He saw what we did at Benedictine, was there when they closed St. Joseph's, and St. Joseph said, they're going to come back. They got to secure the debt, and then they're going to bring it back. And he called me and said, I want you to be the new president of St. Joseph's College in Rensselaer, Indiana. I said, no, thank you. Okay. He called 4 other times. I said, I don't want to be president again, because I don't want to just singular focus. I think there's too much work out there to do with all these institutions. I said, but what I will do is I will help you bring it back. So I'm temporarily now executive director. We have a small staff, and Joseph's gave up their accreditation. Getting accreditation back is a very long and arduous process. We have started St. Joseph's Career College, which focuses on short-term income-producing certificates for students. For example, the healthcare industry, CNAs, CCMA, certified nursing assistant, medical assistants, building and coding people, EMTs. We had these certificate programs going on that the students take a state test, they're certified, and they can, those certificates are usually transferable around the country. We've had people leave short-term programs and they get $65,000 a year jobs. In a year, we have a couple hundred graduates of those certificate programs. We are also working with a select group of colleges to bring their accredited programs to Rensselaer, Indiana. So we have University of St. Thomas is bringing in 5 associate degree programs, and they have to be, in and out fast, and the tuition has to be extremely reasonable. And they're on campus in Rensselaer, where they had no credit programs. We're also working with several other colleges about bringing in nursing. We have a couple hundred graduates now in our healthcare programs. That's a natural feeder for a nursing program. So we're bringing in like-minded accredited institutions into Rensselaer Indiana. It's not about St. Joseph's accreditation. They can still get a college degree in that little town. And one of the things that I've learned with some of these colleges, many of our rural institutions play like they are urban institutions.
Right.
Okay. We're now taking advantage of the rural setting of Rensselaer and focusing on, for example, vet assistants who can go out in the farmland and work with farmers to better care for their animals, for their crops. So it's a unique transition from being president of 11,000 to starting all over. It's a beautiful campus. The debt will be paid off in short time, and they're open and doing business. That's a model, I think, that can be copied all over the country. One of the issues I'm having with our colleges is we get into a sense that we all have to be all things to all people. Small liberal arts institutions who are struggling need to learn how to partner with each other. All right. You don't have to be all things. Let's develop unique partnerships to produce income and also really serve your bottom line.
Good. We just talked about bottom line. Let's talk about that from the student perspective. How much did you hear from students when you were president at Benedictine around, ROI of my degree program, or did that not matter? Do you hear that from your international partners with Hunter and students coming over? Is that important to them? And then the same thing at St. Joe's. You talked about tuition must be reasonable. Does that factor into that? How does this idea of ROI on an education play up today versus back when you started in higher ed?
For me, frankly, I've never run into that thing where I spent all this time. Remember, I said Benedictine's debt when I left was $19,000 for 4 years.
Right.
Not $225,000. All right. And at Benedictine, one of the things we did there is they have a history of focusing on the science. So, for example, in the 40s, the Manhattan Project, we had 2 or 3 monks working on that. And my first week at Benedictine, the Atomic Energy Commission called me and said, Dr. Carroll, we think there's radioactive waste buried on the campus. I said, what?
Yeah.
They came out and they found it because in those days, they didn't know what to do with it. Right. So the monks built a concrete vault and put it in there. And so the Atomic Energy Commission came out. I saw the Skull and Crossbones truck leave. The next day, it came back, and this time we have dirt from Chernobyl. Okay, so a lot of the radioactive devices you see in laboratories were developed at Benedictine. It was known for its sciences. As the liberal arts began to take hold, the science funding went down. All right, and you can't take $10 and spread it evenly over 20 new programs and not hurt the older programs. Right. What we realized in '95 was we have to bring the sciences back. It's still our brand. And we put a lot of money into sciences, new buildings and that. So those students left and became researchers. They became doctors. It really wasn't their issue in terms of return on investment. Our liberal arts people, the same thing. You may not get a degree, a job teaching philosophy, but the AT&T studies, show that people with liberal arts degrees are dynamite in terms of critical thinking. And they actually rise in management quite fast. Hook them up with certificate programs, and then they have skills to offer. So I've heard that. I mean, I think that's a counter argument to going to college. My advice to students is beware of what you spend on college. I mean, You can go to a $50,000 a year school, okay, and end up with a huge debt, or you can go to a $20,000 a year school accredited by the same higher education commission, let's say, for example, and not have the debt. Don't spend the money on the big names when a smaller institution might serve you better. Or your community colleges, excellent sources. We accept all the credits from a community college. Take 2 years there and transfer over junior and senior. So the return on investment, college is still important. I think there's a movement going on now I really like, and that's that year off. Go get a certificate. Become a nursing assistant. Maybe you might want to go on and become a nurse or a doctor. We don't have to stop 18 years old, now I got to start college and finish in 4 years. Take some break years. Get some other kinds of experiences. Because remember, you're going to have a job, 5 or 6 different jobs in your career. Prepare yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looking back now, is there anything that you would do differently as a college president, knowing what you know now?
I probably would have pushed even harder.
Okay.
I would have developed more programs. They used to call me the popcorn president because for some reason I'm blessed with ideas. And, technology now, I would have prepared Benedictine better for technology. Technology is the future. All right. Forget your old buildings. Don't put the money in them. They're not coming back. All right. Technology is the whiteboard of tomorrow, today. And, COVID has been tough, but it's changed us forever. So I would have made us much better prepared for the internet. We spent a lot of money on technology, but we never really used it to the best of its ability. But I would also push harder for a breakdown of majors. We don't need English, history, philosophy majors. Okay, we need those disciplines integrated into the study of business and management and international, because you don't find philosophy out on a street corner. It's integrated in the boardroom, in conversations. Okay, we set it alone like a silo in an institution. I would have worked hard, Drew, to break those down. I think they're damaging.
Very good. Well, I got 2 questions for you left. Tell me about where do you think higher ed is going now? Next 10 years, what big trends do you think are going to continue to happen in higher education?
As I said earlier, my whole career has been characterized by the threat that many of us are going out of business. Yeah. I think that's actually going to happen. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of colleges going the road of St. Joseph's. St. Joseph's had a vision to come back, okay, and try and stop the bleed before it got too bad. They did, and they are coming back. There will be a new American college that does not look like the colleges of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 80s, 90s, whatever. Okay. It's going to be fleet of foot. It's not going to be building focused necessarily. It's going to be international. Okay. With students attending from around the world and faculty from around the world. It won't be butts and seats totally. It's going to be probably hybrid type models where you do some and others. Your majors and disciplines, your majors will disappear, okay, per se. New kinds of majors will emerge. And the colleges that respond to that will be successful. Those who don't, they're going to have a problem. And that's why I suggest we also look at colleges don't have to be all things to all people. They can partner in unique ways. And I once invited a local college president, Benedictine was going to build a library. I said, hey, why don't we build a library together? And the president said, no, we got to compete. Okay. So I called him a couple of years later and said, why don't we buy toilet paper together? Nope, we got to compete. And that mindset keeps institutions siloed. We have to realize we are a business and we have to work our institutions like they are a business. I don't think a lot of us do that. And we give more money out than we take in. And, it's kind of like the Grim Reaper is coming to collect the product. So it's going to be dramatically different. A lot of institutions are going to go out of business. I think a lot are going to partner in new ways. International is going to be a source of huge number of students. If some of these colleges do not wake up and get involved, it's going to be too late. Vietnam is a great thing. Vietnam is just opening up now to American institutions. Don't wait too long because they're going to have all America they want. China is saturated with American institutions. And China is saying, We don't need another MBA from America. We got thousands of them. All right. So we're looking at other opportunities there. But I mean, you need visionary leaders. And the role of a president is to pick out a spot on the horizon, like you're a ship, get the rest of the institution behind you and steer the ship to realize that spot. And the beauty of that spot is you never catch it. On the horizon, it keeps moving ahead and moving ahead.
That's right. That's
the beauty of the presidency. Part of me would love to be a president again, because there's so many opportunities out there.
Sure.
And we just need to take advantage of them. Another piece is industry needs us more than ever. Okay. And where it's at Rensselaer at St. Joseph's, we're beginning industry training. They're reaching out and helping us with resources to be able to train their workers. Whole different mindset. At Rensselaer, we're going to be adding welding, okay, probably boat maintenance, just to show we're in the field of education, plus the traditional academic. Dramatic change.
Very neat. Well, here's your final question. In your opinion, Dr. Carroll, is college still worth it?
I'd do it all over again. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what? The skills, to me, are you going to college to learn specific skills like management or, nursing? Maybe. But there's also the whole critical thinking side. There's also how to interact with people, side. That's invaluable. So I think college is absolutely worth it. And, if you go to the traditional surveys, college graduates still make more money than other people.
All right. Dr. Carroll, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed our conversation. Always appreciate hearing your cool stories that you got to share, and look forward to watching what you continue to do great things.
Okay, Drew. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This podcast is brought to you by Ardeo Education Solutions. Ardeo Education Solutions provides loan repayment assistance programs, known as LRAPs, to increase access and enrollment at higher ed institutions. Ardeo's LRAPs help graduates with modest incomes repay their federal student, Parent Plus, and private alternative loans. The powerful promise they provide gives students the confidence they need to enroll. To learn more about Ardeo, visit us on the web at ardeo.org.